Hello Wargamers, it's me Callum from Tabletop Banter, and in today's video we are going to take a look at what makes up a team roster in the Heralds of Ruin kill team game, specifically obviously sticking to that heresy theme. Now what I've done is I've printed out all the PDFs they have for basically army building for legions, and I'm going to use that as an example. Now they do have stuff for Mechanicum, Solar Orcs, Demons, and there's no Imperial Militia and Cults, but like I said, Harry and I are going to sort of discuss that and do basically a version of our own, probably drawing from the old Imperial Guard style thing, bringing in provinces and stuff like that. We'll work on it over time, and then we can provide that as sort of a gap fill. Now, like I said, I'm using the Legions one. It's what I'm most familiar with, and I find there are more Legion players than there are other varieties of players, so it really helps introduce it to the wider audience. Also, Legion Astartes is easily the cheapest thing you can start, because like I said in the last video, the introduction to it all you need are a 10-man box off the internet, or you can get them off eBay, and you know, they're I think 16, 17 quid, or pounds UK I should say, Great British pound sterling, and so yeah, so they're accessible as well as, you know, more common. So without further ado, we're going to go take a look at basically how you build up a roster for a game of Heresy Kill Team. Alright, so what I've done here is I've printed off, like I said, the Heralds of Ruin PDF stuff, and I've put it in a nice little folder. It's easy to keep track of that way, and it means that I can, like I say, make these kind of videos with relative ease. So, without trying to shake the table too much, obviously I've got my core rules here that I've printed off, but we are skipping over those. And we're heading straight over to the Legion Astartes Kill Team segment. Now, this is just a file divider that I've cut out the front cover of. Like I say, just to make it look half alright, I guess. And what we're going to do is we're just going to, like I say, talk about what makes up a team. So the first few pages you'll see. Now, I respect you can't read the font. This is more of a visual aid, like I mentioned in the last one. The quality is not fantastic. My laptop isn't quite capable at the moment, so it's like I say, a visual aid. You can follow along with me if you've downloaded the PDF. If you haven't, then at least this gives you some kind of reference point. So the first thing it talks about is Heresy era gaming. Now, basically to say it represents the legions in the Heresy era, which is fairly intuitive. Now, first of all, we've got about this army list, model availability. So you start off with, basically, much like in regular Heresy, you've got HQ choices, troops, elites, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's a sort of simpler system. You have one team leader. Now, that's your sergeants, and we'll go over some options for those in a bit. 1 to 20 core models, and then 0 to 3 special models. Now, if I'm being honest, this to me is a guideline more than a hard and fast rule, because if you're playing a narrative scenario, there might be a situation in which you have multiple team leaders or multiple specials, and it's, like I say, you play to that theme. But if you're just doing a pickup game with a buddy and you just want to get into it, this is a really good place to start, because it forces you to take core models, which of course is, I think, important. Being a lover of tactical marines and so forth, I think that kind of thing really is like I say, important. And it limits how many sort of broken special units you can take. Doesn't stop you. There are some leaders you can take that unlock multiple other units as core. For example, you can take a Dark Martyr, which is the Galvorbak Sergeant, and he unlocks a couple more Galvorbak that you're able to then put into your core slots. So like I say, there are ways to manipulate that, but that's the very basic thing. Now, it's got a couple of amendments for rules here. So first of all, we've got Deep Strike, which is Terminators don't get Deep Strike by default, unlike in, you know, 7th Ed 40k. Now, you'll mostly be familiar with this. This is just to clarify for those of you who aren't. Support units. So where in the Heresy, proper Heresy game, you have to take your 2 compulsory troop choices, and then you can have up to 4 non-compulsory. Here, support units like your special weapon squads, you know, your Legion support, tactical support squads. You may only comprise your roster of up to half of your core, rounding down, of support units. So basically, if you're taking 10, you may only have 5 of them as a support unit. So you can't have 10 plasma guns as your 10 core choices, because that would just be a bit silly, really. And lastly, Fortress of Shields, which basically means if you're base to base with the team leader, +1 toughness. Like I said, that's a bit more situational. The support unit's quite a big one. Now, for the army-wide special rules, obviously Legion Astartes you'll be familiar with. In Heresy is you always regroup on your leadership. Well, here it is any model may re-roll their leadership to regroup and for nerve tests. And then it gets into the Legion rules. Now, it goes over all the Legions currently covered by the Horus Heresy system. So all the way through, I believe, up until the 20th, obviously, and there are included rules for Black Shields. And like I said, I'm not going to go over this in great depth because I think this is for someone who wants to get into the game. It's more important that you kind of read and get a feel for it yourself, rather than have your personal opinion jaded by my personal opinion. And then from there we go on to what you have available as leaders. So like I said, we'll go by the limitations or guidelines. We'll go from that for the purposes of this video. But if you're playing a narrative game with your buddies, doesn't matter. So team leaders, you have a wide selection. So Legion Sergeant, this is sort of your bog standard choice. They can take a shitload of stuff, basically. So you can give them a couple of different invulnerable save bits. You can give them a jump pack. You can give them Terminator armor, etc. So the Sergeant title is really just that. It's just a title, and then you can build the character around that to fit the theme. Now, there's a little amendment box up here. So if you give them a bike, Outriders become troop choices. If you give them Terminator armor, Terminators become troop choices, and so forth. So, like I said, there are ways to manipulate that 1 to 20 core section. Now, Strike Leader, I think, is from the Legion Seeker Squad. You've got Veteran Sergeants, Alexicanum, so sort of your low-level Psyker. Chosen a couple of, and then you've got some Legion-specific ones. So the Mordathan Shade, i.e. the Sergeant from the Mordathan. Now, if you take him, then Mordathan may be selected as core as well as special. So, like I say, you can skew down a certain path. Particularly works for narrative. Now, something to note is all the characters here, all the models or the sergeants are given 2 wounds rather than 1, just to show that they are a team leader. So it doesn't always add 1. So the likes of, I think, the Fire Drakes still only have 2. So I'll just double check on that one before I move on. Here's a good example, Death Shroud. So they still only have 2 wounds. So it doesn't add 1. It just makes sure that everyone's got 2 minimum. And then I think for the Dark Martyr, you'll see that it's actually its usual 3. Yeah, Fire Masters are still, yeah, Dark Martyrs are still 3. Now this is, in my opinion, the most ridiculous choice you can take for a a team leader. Now I'm saying this from a perspective of a Wordbearers player still, but I mean it's fucking stupid. And for 50 points, he's a steal. Now that's not what you should be doing. This is not a game that is designed to be win at all costs. It's designed to be thematic, but that is noticeably tough. Now I've left these little tabs up here. You might be able to see the yellow and the pink tabs. So I'm just going to skip the rest of those, and we're getting onto the core section. So basically the meat of your army. Legion Tacticals, Legion Assault Marines, Legion Breachers. You'd expect that. And then you've got Tactical Support, Recon Marines, and I think that's it. So again, it's the same core from the Red Book. It's that same troop choices. Now, some of them have support roles, i.e. support unit. So the Recon and the Support Marines are both support units. Now, much like in Heresy, all Tactical Support Marines in the kill team must have the same weapon. So there's none of this 2 plasmas, 2 melters. So it's much like you're basically taking a whole squad and then breaking it up into individual units. I think it's really cool. I think that option's there. And then special, you've got your regular specials like Apothecaries, Tech Marines, Terminators, Veterans. Now, a good thing about Veterans, they've changed how they work. So they may select one of the following. Now, every single veteran has to have this, but it's Fearless, Sniper, Furious Charge, Outflank, or Tank Hunters. So finally, in this little booklet, they've just fixed veterans entirely, because it's not sniper and outflank, it is sniper or outflank. That one change totally changes how a veteran tactical marine works. And if they did that in the regular Heresy, Callum would be a happy bunny. Outriders, attack bikes, support marines, and so forth. Jet bikes, destroyers, seekers, and then you get into your Legion specific specials, and that goes on, and so forth, and so on, and so forth, and then we will skip ahead to the armory. So once you've selected which models you want to take, you can then give some of them upgrade, war gear and stuff. You've got suspensor webs, some of them are character specific, some of them aren't. So any model can take a refractor field. Now, you can technically give a sergeant an iron halo. Personally, I don't think you should be able to. It seems stupid that they give something that only the best can have to a sergeant. And there's like I say, there are various different armory upgrades here, a couple of pages worth, and there are ways to basically spend points and add a bit of fluff. And lastly, you've got some transport options, mostly to be used in campaign games rather than regular games or narrative-led scenario games, i.e. 10 tacticals in a rhino, or 10 guys in a rhino, and that's deployed as in like an ambush style, perhaps, for example. So that's the kind of theme in which they are encouraged. That's all you need to know. Really, it's just that initial page where we've got our 1 to 20 selection rules, get your Legion specific rules, and then just have at it. Pick the units you want to have fun with, and then build from there. So like I said, you can get into this, particularly the Legion stuff, for as little as, say, £17 in terms of model count. Now, over more perusing of the rules, you will need an old 7th ed or a new Heresy Red book. I'd recommend the Heresy Red book personally, because it's a considerably better quality book. It also means you can play big Heresy scale games and not be left behind. And regardless of what people say, if there have been changes, it's a new book. You can't just live off the old 7th ed rulebook anymore, unlike some people try and get away with it. Personally, I don't think you should. I think if you're playing Heresy, you should play Heresy. And aside from that kind of tangent I went off on just then, that's about it really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the camera back up and just summarise what we've talked about. And yes, and there you have it. That is basically a summary on how you build a Legion Astartes kill team for Heresy in terms of the Heralds of Ruin setup. Like I said, the rules are free. Go and look on the 7th ed download page on the Heralds of Ruin blogspot. There we go. Sorry, a bit slow thinking today. And just have a flick through the rules online or print them off like I have. It's very easy to read, I find, paper. Now I know there's you might say, oh Callum, you could have printed it double-sided. My printer wasn't playing ball. That's excuse number one. And B, obviously 1 and B, totally the same sort of thing I was going for there. And the second thing I really was important is more, it's left me room for notes. So I'm thinking of going through and making amendments as and when I come across something that's a bit silly. There are no glaringly obvious things, but if there are some, then it means I have that opportunity to basically flip the page over, get my pen out, and just say, actually, this is how we're going to do it. Now, any of those kind of changes, I'll probably write up in a tabletop banter sort of FAQ style thing, linked to this, because, like I say, hopefully we're covering enough games that it will be almost playable. I want people to be playing the game, and if we're finding problems with it, and we can make amendments for ourselves, then our house rule FAQ will be then readily available for other people if they want to use it. Because the system's great already, but there might be 1 or 2 things that we need to look at, certainly for our perspective, but also maybe for the community as a whole. So not that it's not been well play tested, because it really bloody has. So that's it really. I hope you found this informative, and I really hope it encourages one of you, or one person, or maybe even more than that, to just go out, have a look on eBay, buy 10 Mark IV Tactical Marines, sit down, build them up as a kill team, and then paint and play. I mean, honestly, if you sat down at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday with your 10-man tactical sprue, you clipped all the bits off you wanted, you read through the book, and you built up a kill team, you could probably, if you really wanted, have it painted and playable by the end of the Saturday. Not saying everyone could. I know that would be, as long as you're using the right techniques, you can get that done pretty quickly, especially if you've got sort of resin bases that have got, or the plastic bases that have got details on them, and so they're pretty quick to paint up. So really it is a game you could pick up over a weekend. And equally, it's as easy to shift on because you've just got to sell 10 Marines. Now, you know, like I say, it's easy in and easy out. It's that low barrier to entry, which is spot on, really. So if you like it, continue playing it. If you don't, you've not lost anything. So it's always worth a try. Now, the next video in this series will be me going over an entire phase. So I'll be going over it in order, pretty much. So it'll be movement, psychic, shooting, combat. I'll discuss the campaign rules at some point as well. All the ones that they've written out, because I know that Harry, when I come to do a campaign with Harry, I'll change up a couple of bits. Like I want some different progression stuff going on, different ways of gaining experience, rather than sort of. I'm not super keen on some of the things they have. Basically, it's just a personal preference, and so I'll change it because I can. And that's it. So thanks ever so much for watching, guys. If it has helped and if it has got you into it, let me know in the comments below. What would you like to see after I've done that initial roundup, and how would you like me to do the movement phase and so forth? My personal plan at the moment is getting the camera set up, stationary positions, talking through and moving the models and showing you exactly how it works, like bit for bit, because I think that's quite clear that way, and if it's clear, it means you're more likely to understand it and therefore be able to invest yourself in it. That's my thought process anyway. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on that. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.